Once upon a time there was a little girl. She lived deep in the woods with her mother and her father. One morning when she awoke, her father had already left to go wood cutting. Her mother had porridge put out on the table. This was the girl's favorite breakfast. The little girl, named Goldilocks, said to her mother, "My breakfast is too hot. May I go for a walk while it cools?" "Of course, Goldilocks," said her mother. So off Goldilocks went, following a path into the woods. She walked for a while, noticing that it was very calming in the woods. The sounds of the birds, the gentle rustling of leaves, the crunch of sticks and old fallen leaves beneath her feet. After walking for some time, she began to feel hungry and tired. She looked behind her and realized she was a long way from home. She noticed a smell in the air. It smelled like a fire burning. She looked around till she saw where the smoke was coming from. She walked towards it, and then as the trees parted in front of her, a path led to a tiny little cottage. She went toward it and noticed it wasn't so tiny the closer she got. She knocked. The door pushed open slightly. She called out, but there was no answer. "These people aren't home. I am so tired I do need a rest, and I'm ever so hungry. I'm sure they won't mind if I stop in just for a moment before I walk home," Goldilocks thought to herself. So she stepped inside, pushing the door just a little behind her. The smell of porridge filled her nose. She followed the smell. On a large oak table were three bowls, a large one, a medium one, and a small one, filled with her favorite breakfast, porridge. Her eyes always too large for her stomach. She first tried tasting the larger bowl. It was too hot still. With disappointment, she hoped the next one, the medium bowl, would not be hot also. She tried it. It wasn't too hot, but it was too sweet. Finally she hoped on the third bowl. She sat herself down and tried a mouthful. It was just the right temperature and just the right sweetness. perfect, just the way her mummy made it for her. She was only intending to eat a small amount. She knew that this did belong to someone else, and she didn't want to upset them. But before she knew it, she had eaten the entire bowl. With a full stomach, Goldilocks yawned. She looked around for somewhere comfortable to sit and rest before she headed home. In the living room, there were 3 chairs, a large one, a medium one, and a smaller one. She tried the big one. It was quite an effort to climb into it, and she felt lost sunken into it. It was too big for her. She tried the medium-sized one, with all its puffy, fluffy, soft pillows. She again seemed to disappear in the fluffiness. She climbed down and tried the small one, but as soon as she sat back with all her weight, it collapsed beneath her. Oh dear, I do hope the owners understand I didn't mean that. She was becoming so tired. She was about to fall asleep at any moment in any spot. She noticed a staircase and followed it up. There she found a bedroom with 3 beds. Again, a large one, a medium one, and a small one. She laid on the large one. This is far too hard. She couldn't get comfortable, so she tried the medium bed. This is far too soft. She was sinking into it, so she climbed out and tried the smallest one. It was just soft enough, and she pulled the covers over herself and laid her head down on the lovely soft feathery pillow, and before she knew it, she was sleeping, fast asleep in blissful dreams. A warm, full tummy, a comfortable, relaxed body, fast asleep. Downstairs, the family was returning home. This was no ordinary family. It was a family of talking bears, a father, a mother, and a baby bear. They noticed the door pushed open. "Oh, I'm sure it was just the wind," Father Bear said. They went straight to the kitchen. They had gone for a walk to let their breakfast cool, and they hoped it would be ready to eat now. They each sat at their tables, at their chairs. Father Bear looked at his porridge and said, "Someone has been eating from my bowl." Mother Bear took a look at hers. "And someone has also been eating from my bowl." Baby Bear looked at the empty bowl before him. "Someone has been eating mine. They have eaten all of it." Mother Bear soothed him as they all walked to the living room. Father Bear noticed that his chair had little dirty footprints on it. "Someone has been sitting in my chair." Mother Bear noticed the same of her chair, and they have been sitting in mine. Baby Bear looked where his chair should be, and saw it in a crumpled heap on the ground. "Oh no, I have no chair. It's broken," he cried. Daddy Bear promised he would build a new chair that day, but that they must find out who is in their home. In a line, first Father Bear, then Mother Bear, then Baby Bear behind. They walked up the stairs. They looked at their beds. First they looked at Father Bear's bed, all creased. "Someone has been in my bed," said Father Bear. Mother Bear's bed too was creased with blankets strewn about. "Someone has been in my bed," she said. They all looked at Baby Bear's bed. "Someone has been in my bed, little girl, and she's still there." At that moment Goldilocks opened her eyes. She was about to scream. Then Baby Bear bounced onto the bed and cuddled her. "A girl, Mamma, a girl. Can I keep her?" "You can't keep me. I'm not a pet." Mother Bear soothed them both and giggled. Baby Bear had not seen or known much of humans before. Mother Bear had to explain that they lived just like them, and that the little girl had her own family that she needed to return to. Father Bear seemed most scary to the little girl, so Father Bear sat down gently and spoke in his gentlest voice to the little girl. "How far do you live, my dear? We can take you safely home if you like." The girl explained that she was having breakfast but it was too hot, but that she'd wandered so far, and when she saw the fire burning from the fireplace, she thought someone might be home, and when she entered, she was so hungry and tired she'd tried the porridge, broken the chair, and fell asleep in the bed. "Do not worry, my dear. All these things can be fixed," said Father Bear. Goldilocks was much more at ease now. She liked curling up on Mamma Bear's lap. It was nice and cozy and warm. "Can you be my friend?" said Baby Bear. "There are no other bear families in the woods, and no other bear families that talk that we know of anywhere, so I can't find any playmates anywhere. I'm the only family of humans living in the woods too, for miles. I would love to be your play friend, if that's all right with your mummy." "Of course it is, of course it is, children. But first we need to take Goldilocks home, and I think her parents might get quite a surprise when they meet three talking bears." chuckled Father Bear. So they all put on coats, and Goldilocks put on one of Baby Bear's coats, and they set off into the woods to find Goldilocks' home. She could not quite remember the way she had came, for she had simply walked, looking at flowers and trees, and noticing the birds and the flowers. But Father Bear could smell her scent, and quickly found her home. They decided it best if Father Bear waited back, while Mother Bear and Baby Bear went to the house first. Mother Bear waited around the side of the house so as not to scare Goldilocks' mother or father, and Baby Bear stood holding Goldilocks' hand, only ever so much shorter than Goldilocks. Goldilocks opened the door and knocked. "Mom! Dad!" Dad was home now. She could see his boots at the door. They both walked out together, Goldilocks' mother and father. "Oh, goodness! Goldilocks, come here, darling. Step away from that creature." "I'm not a creature." Goldilocks' mother was about to faint when Goldilocks' father caught her. Goldilocks told the whole story, and listening in, that is when Goldilocks gave the signal with a tap of her shoe, and Little Bear's mother came in. A few minutes later they called out for Father Bear to come in. Before they knew it, they were all talking together. Mother Bear and Goldilocks' mother, both happy to finally have other mothers to be friends with in these woods. Goldilocks' father and Father Bear, both happy to have friends also in the woods that were so isolated. And Goldilocks and Baby Bear outside jumping on the trampoline. They were all so happy the way things had panned out. It came about that every weekend, when Goldilocks' father was not chopping wood, the families would visit one another. On a Saturday, Goldilocks and her parents would go over and visit the bears, and they would eat food, they would play, they would sing, and Goldilocks' father would play music. He would play his guitar, and he soon taught Baby Bear's father to play the piano, and they all had a great time together as the two mothers sang and the children danced and played. And on Sundays, the Bear family came to visit Goldilocks' family, and every day that they were allowed, Goldilocks and Baby Bear would visit one another, playing together at one another's house, and often going for walks in the woods, as Goldilocks and Baby Bear had now learnt where they were allowed to go, and how far was too far. They loved it to finally have friends in these isolated woods. And from that moment on, Goldilocks' family and the Bear family remained the best of friends, a secret of the woods that no one else would ever know. Once upon a time, there was a little boy and a little girl. Their names were Hansel, the boy, and Gretel, the girl. Their mother had gone missing in the woods about 2 years earlier. They missed her terribly. Their father, a woodcutter, needed a wife to care for the home and the children, and he was lonely. He met a lady who seemed nice at first, but she soon began to be nasty to the children. But Their father had already remarried her, and so she was their stepmother. The mean stepmother, they called her. They didn't like her at all. Father Bear seemed miserable. He too seemed unhappy with his new wife, and missed the happy memories, as the children did, the happy memories of when their real mother was there, the happy memories of when there was laughter in the home, lovely, yummy, warm meals to fill their tummy, someone to tell them stories and tuck them in at night. Now they had an evil stepmother who locked them in the room all day while father was out cutting wood. She sent them to bed on their own. She did not make them supper with warm milk. When father wasn't home, all she would feed them would be plain scraps of old hardened bread. She spoke meanly to them, and she often hit them when they were in her way. Father was becoming tired and worn and was changing. He had to work so hard. He didn't know where their money was going. But the evil stepmother had been sneaking half of the money away each time the father was paid money for his work, and she'd been hiding it away with a plan of her own to become rich one day. However hard Father Bear worked and handed over that pay packet, they never ever seemed to have food enough to eat. They were always starving. One night, as the children slept, the stepmother and the father talked together at the kitchen table. "It's the only thing we can do," said stepmother in one of her soothing, deceitful, manipulative ways. "Oh, darling, you know I love those children. I love them like my own. Don't I look after them every day?" "Yes, of course you do." "And do I ever complain?" "No, of course you don't." "I cook them meals from any scraps I can find, and feed them all day. I play with them." "Yes, I know. You tell me. I know," said the father. "But this has to be done. We are so poor we will all die. None of us will survive. What will happen when you are so weak from not eating that you can no longer work? And then the whole family will not survive. You need to take the children into the woods. Take them in there, deep, deep into the woods, and leave them there. Some richer passer-bys on their horses with their carriages shall find the children, will dress them in their finest clothes and make sure they look cute, so that some wealthier people passing through may take them and give them a better life." "You really think that would happen?" said the father. "Oh, of course I know it would." The father cried. The stepmother soothed him. But as Hansel listened, he knew the stepmother had always wanted to be rid of the children. The next morning the father seemed very sad. His eyes were red like he'd been crying all night. Yet stepmother was whistling a tune to herself. She packed a bag each, with 2 slices each of bread for the children, and a little small bottle with a lid on it, with water for the children. She packed Father a ham sandwich and a drink of juice in his bag, trying to please him, no doubt. She took him aside once more. Now remember, this way the children will be adopted into a fine family, and they will have a far better life, and you and I will be able to survive on what you earn. If you come back with those children, all of us shall starve and die. You must remember that. Yes, of course, said Father, a broken man. He was no longer thinking or feeling, just acting, knowing what he had to do. In his mind, he believed what the stepmother said, that he was giving the children a better life. Come on, children, you can come wood cutting with me today. The children were dressed in their finest. Gretel said, "Why are we dressed in our finest clothes to go into the woods where we will get dirty?" "Stop asking questions," came the reply of the stepmother. Hansel cuddled her. As they walked, Hansel was breaking up his bread and dropping pieces of it behind him as they got further and further and deeper into the woods that neither of them knew where they were. They had walked for quite a while. Hansel had no bread left now, and finally they stopped anyway. It was nearly night. "Okay, sit here and eat your bread, children. Maybe save some for for the walk home," he corrected himself. The children sat down. "I'm going to chop wood. I'll come back to you when I'm done." He cuddled them both before he walked away. He held on to them very tightly and kissed them, and he said to them, "I love you both. Remember that I only ever do anything for the best for both of you." Knowingly, Hansel said, "We know that, Father." Gretel seemed confused, but she was comforted by the cuddle as Father walked away. It grew so dark. "Daddy's taking a long time, isn't he, Hansel?" said Gretel. Gretel was only about 4, Hansel about 8. "Yes, maybe we should curl up and sleep." "Why haven't you eaten your bread yet, Hansel?" "Oh, I have, you just didn't notice." They cuddled into each other. In their bag was a blanket. The one nice thing that the stepmother had ever done, to pack the blanket. Hansel pulled it, wrapped it around the 2 of them. They soon fell asleep. In the morning they woke because a black rabbit with strange green eyes was standing staring at them. "Hansel, it's morning! It's morning, Hansel!" Hansel rubbed his eyes and sat up. "Hansel, look at that strange rabbit. It's kind of scary, but I feel mean to think it's scary because it's just a creature and that's the way it was made. But I've never seen one with such piercing green eyes and such shiny black fur. So it was time for Hansel to tell Gretel the truth about what was going on. Gretel, do you wonder why Father hasn't come back yet? Because it is morning. We've been here all night. I guess he maybe got lost. Oh no, he's not lost in the woods like Mama and we'll never find him. Oh no, she began to cry. I don't want to live with nasty stepmother forever alone. Oh please, no, Hansel. Hansel cuddled her. No, no, that's not what happened. But I heard them talking before the night before they left us here. And he explained what was going on to Gretel in a way that she would understand at her young age. So, a family is going to come and find us and feed us and be rich and take great care of us? I'd rather be poor and stay with Daddy, even if we do have to put up with that evil stepmother. I know, Gretel, I would too. But she has tricked our father. He thinks he is doing what is best. I think we're going to have to find our own place to stay. Maybe an abandoned cottage or something somewhere here in the woods. And we will have to collect berries and find our own food. We'll have to make my own spear out of wood and perhaps a bow and arrow. But what about the rich family who'll come and take good care of us? Yes, yes, of course, Gretel. But that may take some time, so I think we should get settled first. They began walking after they'd packed their things away in their backpack. But the black rabbit with the piercing green eyes kept on hopping in front of their feet and wouldn't let them go in any direction. Oh, maybe her babies are hurt. I think she wants us to follow. She certainly does want us to follow. For what reason, I don't know, said Hansel. So Hansel and Gretel followed this black rabbit with the strange green eyes. It led them deep into the woods. It seemed to be getting darker. They were a little worried. Is this animal really leading them somewhere? But with a heart for animals, they wanted to help if there was an injured animal or a poor baby animal that needed help. So they continued following until the rabbit stopped. They looked up and could not believe their starving tummies and their little eyes at what they saw. It was the most amazing and delightful sight for two starving little tummies to ever see. It was a house made of candy, made of candy and cream and chocolate and wafer biscuits, everything yummy you could ever imagine. Cakes and chocolate cream and lollipops. Oh, it was delicious. He started to eat from the house and noticed the rabbit was gone. They were too busy eating with their hungry tummies until the door opened and they jumped back, both with cream and chocolate covered fingertips and faces. An old lady with dark, dark, black, shiny hair, very long, just the same kind of color and silkiness as that black rabbit, and piercing green eyes, also just like the rabbit strangely. She stood there, and she said, "Nibble, nibble, like a mouse. Who is nibbling on my house?" "Oh, we are so sorry." "Yes, we are, we're sorry." "Oh, it is children, little children. Oh, you do not need to eat from the house, and you do not need to be sorry. Come in, let me feed you, you poor hungry little children." She took them in. She was ever so nice. She asked them what their favourite meals were. She cooked them for them, and by the end of the night she asked them both what would be their favourite kind of beds to sleep in. And Gretel said a four-poster bed, like a princess bed, with a canopy around it. And Hansel said, "I just want to cuddle up next to my sister." So, when she opened the door to the bedroom, there was the bed that Gretel had described. But on one side, what was there? The curtain had pictures of cars on it, and the drawers and the steps up to step onto the bed were painted like a car. Hansel had always loved cars. He only had one that his father had found. It was a bit rusty and old, but it was his most prized possession. They climbed into bed together, and the lovely old lady tucked them in. "Have a good night's sleep, children." For days this went on. She fed them all the time, constantly asking them, "Do you want more? What can I make you? Oh, but what is your favourite dessert? And what is your favourite morning tea? Your favourite lunch? Your favourite afternoon tea?" Well, they took advantage of this after starving for so many years. But then finally, one night, she put them to bed. They fell asleep, but Hansel awoke and went to the toilet. The old lady did not hear. As he walked back to his room, he saw through into the old lady's room just slightly. And what did he see? He saw she was sitting at the table. He recognized her voice, but her hair was grey and twisty and not shiny black anymore. But it was her. He knew it was her. Her frame was now bony. She didn't look pleasant or sweet or cuddly anymore. She was reading from a cookbook. How to make two-child stew. The eye of a frog. The hoof of an... Huh? What's that I smell? She stopped. Hansel tiptoed, running back to his bed and cuddled up. Then, a few seconds later, he heard the old lady come to the door, check in. She looked and saw that both the children were in bed. Satisfied, she walked out, mumbling that her ears were playing tricks on her. She went back to her room and closed the door to finish the recipe for cooking the children. Hansel shook Gretel. "We have to escape. She's going to cook us and eat us. She's a witch." They quickly put on their pajamas, and Hansel held his sister's hand. She was very frightened. Quietly, quietly they walked through the house. They opened the door, and they stepped out. But the house was alive. As they walked out the gate, they heard whispers. "The children are leaving, the 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 children are leaving." "Little children, where are you going?" said the voice, and there they saw the wicked witch, the kind old lady with the dark silky black hair, the cuddly frame, and those piercing green eyes, was now a bent over, hunched over old hag with bones popping from her shoulders, her hips, every inch of her body. Her eyes were white with grey and just the tiniest little black smoky dot in the middle. She was ugly and scary looking, her hair a mop of grey wire. "Come back before I have to use my magic cane," said the witch, holding up a stick in the air. Just then a tiny little creature said, "Psst!" It was a little gnome person, a tiny little man gnome. "Come on, I'll save you. You have to run as fast as you've ever run." He threw something at them, some shiny kind of dust at their feet, and suddenly they had the power, a superpower, to run fast. "It won't last long, so come on, make the most of it." The witch was throwing zaps behind them. They could hear her voice. She was getting her broom. "Oh, she'll be behind us any second. Quick, quick, down this hole." When they went down the hole it was like a slippery slide. Whee! And they dropped at the end. They heard the door, which made it look covered in dirt so that no one would ever know they were down there, and it closed behind them. They had landed in a world where everything was small, as though it was designed just for children. It was the perfect size for them, everything, the chairs, the tables, everything. But it wasn't actually made for children, it was made for gnomes, and gnomes were all around. "These are not gnomes, these are human childs. Why did you bring human childs home?" said a woman with a very chubby belly and a pleasant face with chubby cheeks. "Oh, the witch is capturing children again," said the man with the grey beard and the pleasant smile, also with the chubby belly and chubby cheeks, who had saved them. "Oh, you poor children! But you shouldn't have brought them here. Now when they go home they'll tell their parents, we'll be locked in museums. Oh dear, whatever will we do?" "We don't have parents," said Hansel, and he explained their story. The man and woman gnome had always wanted children of their own, but they were unable to have babies. "Something is wrong in my tummy that won't let me have children," said the lady. Her name was Mona, and her husband, Bee, cuddled her as she said it. "Would it be all right with you, Bee?" Bee nodded. Mona said to the children, "Would you like to be our adopted children? We know you have a mother and father of your own who you love very much, and I would say that that witch has your mother. And your father, I'm sure you'll see him again some day, but perhaps we can be your adoptive gnome parents, even though you have your own real parents. Of course, you can be our gnome parents. We'd love that." The children cuddled Mona and Bee. The other gnomes around clapped. "Do you all live here?" asked Hansel. "Oh no, they're all just leaving actually. We've been having a fun gathering for Hermione's birthday, May is 265,000 years old today. A lady who did look quite old, in a rocker, smiled a toothless grin, but she certainly didn't look to be that many thousands and hundreds of thousands years old. Off they went down another chute, and now it was just Mona, Bee, Hansel and Gretel. They came to find that there was a bedroom made especially for the children they'd never had, but had always hoped to. A race car bed for a boy, and a princess bed for a girl. They pushed the beds together because they knew the children wanted to be together, and with a wave of a magic finger, turned the two single mattresses into one large mattress that stretched across the two beds, so the children could cuddle together all night. And also with a wave of a magic finger, Mona made the two single blankets into one big one, half with cars on it and the other half with princesses on it. The children were very happy. Parents who could wave their fingers and make magical things happen. Fairy dust they could throw on their feet to make them run super fast. But of course, deep in their hearts, nothing ever could compare to their real mother who they longed for, and they now had some hope because Mona had said that the witch probably had taken their mother those years ago. She said no mother would ever leave children like you. She would love them with her heart and soul, and the family that we described to her, Mona said, no mother would ever leave. She said that witches often stole ladies walking and gathering berries alone in the woods, and she put them down in her cellar because she was sucking the youth out of them, because whenever she wanted to go out, she would fill herself with the youth that she had sucked out of these human women, and then she could go out and find handsome men looking for a prince to trick and get married to, and then she would be a princess, or even marry a king and become queen. And by the time the youth serum had worn off, he would have had no idea, and she would kill him with her magic. They wondered if their mother was down there. She was very beautiful. She had flowing dark hair that curled, and it was ever so long. It was dark hair, very dark. It was as black as, wait a moment, as black as that rabbit. But their mother's eyes weren't that piercing strange green. Their mother's eyes were a dark chocolatey brown. They somehow knew that's where their mother was, and they began to hatch a plan between them that they vowed somehow, without endangering or being ungrateful to Mona and Bee, they would get their mother back, their human mother that is, because as days and weeks and months passed, Mona did become their known mother and Bee their known father, and they loved them both so dearly, just like any mother and father, but still they missed their own. What they didn't know was that meanwhile, their father, the poor woodchopper, had come to his senses. Feeling lonely, with the stepmother's true colours finally surfacing, he could see how mean and nasty that she was, especially through one particularly cold winter month when it was snowed in and he couldn't go out working, and he was stuck inside with the evil stepmother for the entire month. She sat on her bottom and had him fetch me this and fetch me that and rub my feet with her old overgrown sharp toenails that were green and yellow and smelly. He realized when he found a box and he opened it, and inside were hundreds of dollars. She had been hiding this. She had a plan. While they lived so poorly, she'd been hiding and burrowing away this money. So he kept the box. He picked her up by the ponytail and he pulled her along. "Oh, let go of me. What on earth are you doing? Oh, you're not taking me to cuddle and kiss, are you? I don't kiss. I would never kiss you." He threw her out into the cold with no shoes on. For a long time she banged and banged on the door. "I can't walk with no shoes out in the snow. Oh, darling, sweet Chops. Oh, I was saving that money for us so we could get out of here. Oh, sweetie." Eventually, these sweet cries turned to nasty ones. "Oh, what kind of man are you anyway? I deserve a prince, a king. Those children of yours, they are mongrels." That hit him. He came out with an axe. "And I know what happened to your wife. The witch of the forest has her. You'll never see her again." He hurled the axe above his head, and she ran through the woods, through the snow, on her poor bare feet. But he felt no sympathy for this wife of his, who he immediately divorced. Now alone in his cottage, when the snow cleared, every day he searched. He didn't believe in witches of the forest that had stolen his wife. He didn't believe it. It couldn't be true. But had some family found his children? Were they happier and better off without them? He searched and searched the woods, and every cart that would go by, he would show a picture and ask if they had seen the children, but the answer was always the same: no, no, no. He didn't know how far away from where he'd left them they were now. Deep, deep, and far further into the woods, far from where he had left them, at least 2 hours further. This is how his existence went on, looking for the children, but knowing in his heart the wife must be dead, because she would have returned if she could. The children lived on quite happily with Mona and Bee, but always with that empty, gaping hole in their spirit, missing their mother and their father. One day they set about a plan. They had been gathering food together and put it in a sack, and they wrote a note thanking Mona and Bee and saying that they would always be their gnome parents, but they missed their mother so, and they had to save her. They found a small amount of dust in a bag. This they knew to be the magical fairy dust. They took it with them. They knew that they should use it sparingly, and only when they absolutely needed it. They took a hunting knife of their father gnomes, and also the secret that Mama Mona had taught them was that vinegar burnt the flesh of witches. and made their powers useless. So a bottle of vinegar went into Gretel's pocket, and when Mona and Bee had gone for the day, visiting with their friends the gnomes, the children said they weren't well and laid in bed. Okay, said Mona and Bee, and off they went. After they'd been gone about half an hour, the children set off in their warmest coats and boots, with all the supplies that they'd packed, and they headed, looking for the cottage made of lollies. By now, Gretel's hair had grown so very, very long. In pigtails she had it at the sides with a beanie on, and Hansel's hair, which used to be long and scruffy and overgrown to his shoulders, was now all cut off, and he too wore a beanie. Dressed in their fine clothes that Mona had conjured up with her magic, they looked like two completely different children than the poor children that had been found by that black, green-eyed rabbit. So when the black, green-eyed rabbit saw them, it did not suspect them to be Hansel and Gretel, and they put on an act that they were starving and lost, and had lost their family's coach, and that they'd been lost for a whole day. Well, the bunny led the way, and they began to eat from the house, when they heard, "Nibble, nibble like a mouse, who is nibbling on my house?" They knew the witch's eyesight wasn't the greatest, and with their changed looks she would never know who they were. They made their voices slightly different. "Oh, we just got lost from our parents. We got lost from them early this morning, and now it is about to get dark and we are frightened." "Oh, come in, dear children, let me feed you." She took them in, and she fed them anything they wanted, asked them what their favourite bed would be, made it, and then tucked them in nice and warm to bed. Hansel did not sleep. He waited. He could hear the old witch muttering about her children's stew recipe. Finally her light went out. He waited a while longer till he heard snoring. "Come on, Gretel, let's go." With everything they needed in their pockets, they went out the door, down the hall, till they found a door that they thought must have led to a basement. They opened it and walked down its stairs. They began to hear chains rattling. In there, stuck to chairs, with machines on them that were glowing with liquid coming out of the women into bottles. It must be the youth serum that the witch is drawing from these young women. They immediately untied their feet and arms, and they were free. "Shh, be quiet," said the children. "My children." The last one in the corner, they undid her. It was their mother. Her black hair was starting to go grey like the witch's. There was only half black left. Soon she would be of no use to the witch, and the witch would be rid of her. Her brown eyes were fading and cloudy with weakness from the youth that had been sucked from her. She looked far older than she was. Then they saw one of the women with piercing green eyes except her eyes too were cloudy. She too would soon be not much use for the witch. Okay, we've got to get out of here. Gretel and Hansel had put the vinegar each into little bottles. They had about 20 of them. There were about 6 women, so they gave a little bottle of vinegar to each woman, and one each for Hansel and Gretel, and put the rest away in their backpacks. With the hunting knife in his hand, Hansel led the way. They walked up and out the door. They were just at the front door ready to leave, when slam! The whispers began. The house was telling the witch they were leaving. The women were too weak to fight. They didn't show what was in their hands. Out came the witch. You think you are taking my secret of youth. She clicked her fingers, and she suddenly turned into a gorgeous beauty. She had the beautiful dark black shining hair of their mother. She had the piercing green eyes of the other woman. She had the glowing complexion and lovely peaches and cream skin of one of the other women. She also had the lovely height of one of the other women. She also had beautiful red blossoming lips, just like cherries, and pouting so lovely, like one of the other women. She also had long shiny nails, like one of the other women, and she had a beautiful waist, and she had a beautiful body like one of the other women, like the outline of an hourglass. All this occurred as she clicked her fingers and drained the beauty that she had sucked from these women, and that was attached to her in a beauty serum bottle, where all she needed to do was click her fingers for their youth to flood her body. And they had to admit she did look very beautiful, but that beauty was not her own. It belonged to each of these women, who were becoming the way she used to look, and getting frailer and frailer as the youth was being sucked from them each time. For years, they knew their mother had been here for 2 years, and had her youth drained from her all that time. How long had these other women been here? You cannot beat me with my powers. She held out her hand, and her broom came to her side. She sat onto it, and began to chase them as they ran around the house. All of the women pulled out their bottles. "Ready on the count of 3," said Gretel, and they all got ready with their bottles of vinegar. 1, 2, 3. Splash! All over the witch. Her face melted. She cried out in agony and pain. She melted on the floor. They noticed the house was beginning to melt, and the floor was feeling hot. They too would melt. They had to get out. They had to get out. They couldn't open the door. So they took the witch's broomstick and her stick that she held at her side. They pointed that magic wand stick at the door and said, "Open." It opened. They all tried to squeeze on, but the broom was not big enough. Their feet were burning every second. They pointed the magic wand. "Grow, wand, grow." It wouldn't work. "Multiply, wand, multiply to 8." So the wand multiplied. The magic flying broomsticks so that there were 8, one for each woman, and one for Hansel and one for Gretel, and they flew away, hovering above as they watched the house of horrors that looked like any child's candy dream melt and flame and disappear as the howls of the witch could be heard in the woods. Each woman returned home to their families. One woman, the woman with the green piercing eyes, she was married to a king who was very rich. She herself was a queen. Now that the witch was dead, the women went back to their previous appearances. All their youth, all their beauty had returned, so that when they returned home, their families and husbands recognized them. But she knew that each of these women would be like her sisters for life. She went home to her husband and had a wonderful homecoming. But as they were the richest in all the land, and had a room full of money and treasures, she gathered 6 boxes, and she filled them all with money and jewels, large treasure boxes, and she went and hand-delivered them to each of the women and spent time cuddling with them and told them to visit the palace any time they wished. Finally, she went to Hansel and Gretel's house. By now, they were all reunited, and the woodcutter was so happy to have his wife back, and he couldn't believe the stories that the children and his wife had to tell him. Then, when the beautiful queen with the piercing green eyes turned up on the doorstep, he almost fainted. My goodness! Gnomes, queens, witches, what more is out there in this world? He said. They all laughed. The lovely woman gave the treasure box, full of money and riches and jewels. She gave it to the family. Now you will never be poor. Leave these woods. Start again. Buy yourself a beautiful home somewhere. Oh, we can't accept this, said the parents. They were far too modest, and they worked hard for everything that they had, as little as it was. They didn't want to take something that wasn't theirs. You are like my sister, and you will be for life. Please, please accept my gift, and do not insult me, she said ever so kindly. Thank you. However will I repay you? There is one way, if your children will give this to the lovely gnome family that looked after them. And we have all made a pact that we will never tell a soul. Myself and all the other women from the dungeon of the Queen's house. We will never tell a soul of the gnomes. But please will you take this to them? It was a smaller box, filled with treasure and rolled up money and coins, but different kinds of money and coins, very, very tiny, and not like humankind. What are these? Well, they are money and jewels, but these have been in my family for generations. We all just thought it was some kind of strange story, someone of our ancestors had made it up. But my great-great-great-great-great-grandmother had a story where she'd been hurt once and was lost in the woods for days, and some lovely gnomes had taken her in, and they had taken her in and looked after her until she was well. But sadly, when she was well, they got very, very sick because she had also gotten a flu in the woods, and the human flu can kill the gnomes without the special medicine. Back in those days, the special medicine was hard to find. These days, it's much easier for them, so gnomes don't die of the flu anymore. But back in those days, it was common. If you came in contact with a human, you could catch a flu and die. So they were very scared of humans. These were very wealthy gnomes who had cared for my great 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 grandmother. And so when they passed, she buried them, and she gathered all the treasures that they had in their little box, and she took it with her, intending to keep it as a reminder of them forever and ever. And it's been passed down generation to generation with the story, which has slowly become just a myth that no one really believes. But I believe it must be true now that I know of your story, and this must truly be gnome money and gnome riches. I believe it will make them very wealthy gnomes indeed. So she gave the small treasure box to the children, and she thanked them for doing what she had asked, and told them, please assure them that we've all made this pact and we will never tell anyone that they are or that they exist at all. After everybody had thanked one another and said goodbye, the children went one more time into the woods with their mother and father, of course, in a buggy that they had bought. And when they got there, they went down the hole, making their mother and father park a few hundred meters away because they couldn't let them know, just as they had promised. They could never let anyone know where the gnomes lived. They slid down the hole. Mummy Mona, Papa B, they called out. Oh, our children, we got your note. We knew that you had succeeded when we saw the witch's home was gone and melted to the ground. Oh, we miss you so, but we are happy for you to have your parents back. Thank you. But you are still our gnome, Mummy and Daddy, and we will still visit you always. Oh, thank you, my children, thank you. You know, we have something for you. They handed the treasure box to them. When Mona and Bee opened the treasure box, Mona fainted. After a few minutes and a cold cough on her forehead, she came round. They explained that this would make them billionaires many times over. Where did you get this? They told the story of the woman with the green eyes. Wow, how generous of her. Well, we are leaving right now, so we won't see you very often. We are going to live in a palace that we have bought with riches that she gave us. Won't you come too? We can have a special place for you gnomes, and it's got a large land on it, big enough to have our own nature, our own woods out the back. Please, please, Mummy, please, Daddy. Oh, and Mummy and Daddy Gnome could not resist. They packed up their belongings and went with the children and their human parents, and they all went and lived in the grand palace with all its great land around it, where the gnomes had their own palace made underground, just big enough so that as the children grew, they would still fit in, but just still small and cozy enough for Mona and for Bee. And then when you guys are grown-ups, I guess we will build another one next door, adjoining through a tunnel for when you visit. They all giggled, and that is how life went on, with giggles and happiness, forever after.